The Dung Defender is a fan favorite character for obvious reasons. Just look at how boisterous he is. Makes it easy to forget how absolutely gross everything about this fight is. But forget about that, because we have a lot to cover here. First of all, the Dung Defender is one of very few non-Dream Warriors to have variable health based on your nail upgrades. Secondly, all of his attacks are rather complicated, many having multiple different hitboxes. He has the Shot Put, the Butterfly Stroke, the Curl, and the High Dive. The Shot Put looks pretty simple. He'll gather up a ball of dung and then hurl it forward at a slightly random angle. However, there's a lot going on under the hood with this one. Most pressing of all, his arm here doesn't really look like an attack, but try hanging out in his personal space and you'll see just how much of an attack this is. It's possible to attack from just outside this attack's range if you've got the Mark of Pride equipped, but it's going to be much more reliable to just briefly retreat whenever you see him bend over to gather up the dung. But that's all not even getting into the balls themselves, which are bizarre and have unique bouncing physics. They will not disappear off stage until they hit the ground for the third time, and their trajectory can be changed by hitting them with the nail. Or they can be destroyed if you hit them with a spell. You'll probably want to do at least one of those, because these things are sporadic, and when bouncing around in conjunction with other attacks, it is far too easy for one to sneak up on you. However, as you might expect with something that bounces, tucking yourself into a corner can be an excellent idea. In fact, stark contrast to just about every other fight we've done so far, staying in the corner is almost always safe from all of his attacks. If things get dicey, feel free to wedge yourself in and heal up. But we're still not done talking about shot puts, because there are actually 3 different varieties that he can do. The first is really simple. He'll just throw one ball and they carry on. However, if he throws 2 balls, he'll always immediately follow it up with one of 2 attacks, either the high dive or the curl, both of which we'll get to in a bit. Finally, on to his second attack, the butterfly stroke. This is basically just a really slow dash forward, but don't let the funky animation distract you. As such, the ideal way to dodge is just to jump overhead, and probably get in a nail pogo as you do so. Or you can dash and retreat to the corner. For some reason, he will never chase you that far. His third attack, the curl, is probably the most difficult. As I said, he can do this attack after doing 2 shot puts in a row, but actually, he will only ever do this attack following the double shot put. That means that if he's doing this, you've got 3 bouncing hitboxes flying around the screen, which can absolutely feel overwhelming. Hiding away in the corner is a very solid response, but you should also know that he follows very similar rules to his bouncing dung balls. He'll only end this attack if he's staggered or once he hits the ground for the 5th time. On top of that, he's just as susceptible to your nail as the dung balls. This makes it completely possible to just bully him. Slash upward from the ground and dash in the same direction as him, and you can literally juggle him until he's staggered. The timing of this can be a little tricky, and it's another thing that's made easier with the Mark of Pride, but it is so worthwhile. Just make sure not to jump up to meet him, or you'll probably just drop the combo. Finally, we have the high dive. First, he'll dive down into the ground, practically leaving the arena entirely, as neither of you can hit each other during this stage of the attack. After a few seconds, this little earth disturbance that he makes will go still, and he'll burst straight up from underground, creating 4 dung balls in an arc to either side of him as he does. These dung balls are very similar to the shot put ones, with the major distinction being that they disappear after hitting the ground for the 1st time instead of the 3rd. This attack is super easy to dodge as soon as you know where he's jumping up from. All you have to do is stay close to that initial launching spot and all the balls will land harmlessly elsewhere. That is, of course, if you even let him reach this point. Rewind to a few seconds ago when I said that neither of you can hit each other while he's underground, and that was a bold-faced lie. In fact, while underground, he is completely susceptible to the Desolate Dive and Descending Dark spells. Use the spells anywhere on stage while he's underground, and he'll be forced back above ground, interrupting the attack and putting him in a unique stagger state that doesn't actually count against his stagger counter, meaning that you can actually stagger him out of this stagger state, and it's amazing. Just keep in mind that this only works during this attack. It doesn't affect him during the butterfly stroke. One last thing, he will perform a unique Berserk version of this attack when he reaches 50% of his health to signify the start of his 2nd phase. He'll only do this once per battle, and actually it's the only difference between the 2 phases. After doing a big shout, he'll dive into the ground and move around down there much faster than before, bursting upwards sooner than usual. When he hits the ground, he'll immediately go back underground and repeat the process until he's performed about 6 consecutive jumps, at which point his behavior will return to normal. Mind you, none of this really matters, because you can still interrupt this attack with the ground pound spell. But that's it for his attacks. Let's break down the game plan. Our objective here is to bully him relentlessly. If you have to retreat to the corners to heal, that's just fine, but otherwise, you should basically always be right up in his business slashing away. One thing to note is that the startup animations of the butterfly stroke and the high dive are very similar, so it's best to assume that he's going to use the butterfly stroke because that's the one that's more likely to hit you if you guess wrong. If it's the high dive after all, just hit him with your own dive. One final note, I actually do want to make a charm recommendation here. Purely on the merits of how much easier it makes dodging the shot put, I recommend Mark of Pride. After all, this guy's clearly pretty proud of himself. Now let's knock him down a peg. Oh, you. Hello. I remember you, Dung Defender. As with the rest, we do indeed have some nice access to the Shade Cloak to have things be a little bit easier, but it's hardly necessary. If you didn't have Descending Dark on your first run, you almost certainly have it by now. And as such, you can still just bully him. No significant changes on the Ascended difficulty. You do have to be very careful. Probably this arm swipe is the attack that is most likely to kill you, I would say. It's very easy to get kind of greedy relative to the distance of him while he's chucking those dung balls at you. But just take your time and it shouldn't be a problem. I will freely cut you off from anything that— oh no! Oh, right, this isn't Ascended. Ow. But that's that. Now, Radiant Dung Defender does have the potential of being quite tough. He does have all his projectiles once again, so just be sure to bear in mind the almost completely safe zone that is the corner if you should ever need a moment to breathe. But I think we're not the ones who are going to need that moment here. Unfortunately for him, he'll get no sympathy from us. Oop, that's probably going to most likely hit us, maybe— nope, okay. Bam! And you should be just about done. That's it there! Dung Defender down. On behalf of the Dung Defender, I thank you for watching Boss Blitz. As usual, my full playthrough of the game is linked in the top left corner of the screen. And in the next part, we're going to take on the Fluke Marm.